Hello, everyone. I'm Katrina from Soups Marketing. This is a recording for a webinar that we did in May for marketing in the digital age. Yeah, this is the overall strategy, looking at your marketing strategy. We're really just trying to hone in on that bigger picture where we're allocating resources and such. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so everyone can see the presentation. Okay. So like I said before, this is looking at the bigger picture and looking to see where we can get the best bang for our buck in the digital driven age. So the first thing to consider is, what are you doing now? Print, digital, traditional? Are we running TV ads? Are we running radio ads? Are we, boosting our posts on Facebook or running any ads on Twitter, Instagram, etc.? Are we running Google ads? And then on the print end, everything from your paper flyers to the signage in front of your storefront to maybe yard signs that you may have, a billboard, and then over to maybe a magazine or newspaper. That's where you need to look at that larger picture. So if you just get out a piece of paper right now, I want you to pause me and just take time to jot that down to have a nice, clear look at everything that you're doing now in your marketing efforts. So go ahead and pause me. Okay, so hopefully you've done that and you have a nice clear picture in front of you of where your marketing is currently. So what we're going to look at today is just this whole marketing strategy, all of these different tools here, web design, your planning, plan, and make sure you have a little bit of a backup plan. And if your plans don't succeed, then you need to be prepared to plan again. What your social media looks like, your offline integration is very, very important. I encounter a lot of business owners who they're kind of doing one or the other. They're either all offline or they're all online. And it's good to be able to find that balance of both, your online and offline integration. What are you doing to build traffic within your website? If that's where your store is, that's where your money is made, then how are you building traffic there? How are you building traffic to get people to your website, to your store, or to your store, etc., back and forth? And then analyzing. Are you analyzing your different marketing efforts? Are you looking at how the results are coming in, where your sales are, where your sales people, those going out and they're having the face-to-face with your customers? Even if it's a checkout clerk, you need to be finding out where they're hearing about you, where they're getting the information, what are they buying, so on and so forth, to get a good idea of where your dollars are being spent the best. And then of course print. So again, we're going to look at the helicopter view of these items and how they drive your industry. We will address a few industry-specific challenges. However, being that we are online, or we're doing a recording right now, we won't obviously be taking questions. So, all right. So this is a portion of a worksheet that I put together. And if you would like a copy of that worksheet, all you have to do is shoot me an email at soupsmarketing@gmail.com and say, hey, I'd like the campaign development form. And I will send you a copy of it. It comes as a Word doc, so you can edit it however you like to work for your company. So at the top, we always name every campaign, whether it's something more broad, like increase traffic into the store, or if it's something more specific, like we want to do more boy haircuts. We have a higher profit margin. They don't take a whole lot of our stylist time. We want more boy haircuts. So you can look at your, look at where you're wanting to increase sales, and run your campaign accordingly. Your campaign time frame, it is going to be different for each industry. Some like B2B industries, for what I do, most of my campaigns, they run at least 90 days. If I were to run a campaign shorter than 90 days, in most cases, it's not going to be effective. It's hard to get through to all of those key people and be effective in, like a 2-week period where, you go down to the local Shop and Save or to Target or some of these other places. that are retail, and you can run a sale there for a day and get traffic in, because it's more, you can build a market for that. Whereas with what we're doing here for business to business, you can't build a market from something that doesn't exist. You either need these types of services or you don't. So we're going to, we went ahead and named our campaign Back to School Hair. As I mentioned previously, this was initially done towards the end of May. That's when we had this webinar to begin with. So we were looking at, looking forward. So with our campaign timeframe being July 1st to August 25th. So, just looking at the timing that we had based on when we ran the webinar to now, to these dates, it was giving us enough time to effectively build the whole campaign and run the whole campaign, with effectively, like we had enough time to do that. So often I find business owners who, they get this great idea in their head, and then they're like, well, we want to do this tomorrow, or we want this to start next week. Well, you don't really have the timing in for it, and especially if you're on a super tight budget. If you have the budget and you can, get banners printed overnight and have rush printing, and you have someone on staff to get your website edited and all that stuff, and you have the dollars to do all that stuff quickly, then, in those cases you may have, more of an advantage to do that type of thing. But for the most part, you want to give yourself plenty of time. It gives you time to think, build the campaign, run different specials throughout it, and things like that. You get different features going in that if you do it on a whim or on a short notice, you don't have as much time to build on. So we're gonna do ours on Back to School Hair. And again, the campaign time frame was July 1st is when we're gonna launch our Back to School Hair special, and we were going to end on the 25th, assuming the 25th was after students went back to school. That was based on that assumption. I really don't know when kids go back I don't even know when my own kids go back to school yet, and it's into August. Okay, so we're going to look at digital first. And you want to make sure, of course, you have a responsive website, something that transposes well from a laptop to a large desktop tablet, and then to a phone. I'm sorry, my light's going to keep going out here. We're going to be looking at your overall brand as we build through this. You want to keep in mind, especially if you're not part of a franchise, your brand is all of you. Like, it is your name, your logo, identity, your colors, your marketing, and your overall strategy to how you reach consumers is something that you need to keep in mind as you're building these campaigns. So for our little mock here, we're going to make sure that we consider all of these things for our hair salon that we're doing here. So much of our marketing is about you. It's about who you are and what you're doing. You have to be absolutely convinced that your cupcakes are the best in the entire world at the best price, and you're the best person to sell them. When you believe that, then marketing becomes second nature to you. It becomes part of you. And I'm speaking from other business owners who I've encountered, and they'll say things like, well, but I know so-and-so down the street does this, or I know so-and-so up the street does that. And, I can't really compete with this, or I can't compete with that. And it's, if that's how you feel, then you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur. You just shouldn't. If you feel that other people are doing your job better than you, then either one, you need to step up your game, or two, step out of the game, because you have to be convinced that you are doing the best that can be done. Okay, let's look at digital. So as we're looking at building these different campaigns for any business, you have to look at how you're going to send the information out, and making sure that you're going to have the greatest reach, of course, to your market. So when we look at building, we start on the digital end, because you'll see as we build this and we start with digital, you'll see how everything else just kind of flows so beautifully. So within this, we're going to look at, and I'm just going to go down through the bullet points here, and some things that you will use, some things that you won't. I do recommend you do just one of these items. Fill in everything, but when it comes to spending dollars, do at least one of them in the digital section so that you have a digital reach. So your social media content development, when you do this early, if you get this done first, not only is it something that you then later on will have to go back and spend a whole bunch of time doing, but you start creating the fine-tuning details of your campaign. So you start looking at, okay, so we're going to do this back to school hair. How can we grab different types of students, or how can we maybe grab their parents? They're bringing Johnny in to get his hair cut and Sarah to get her hair done. How can we maybe grab mom? Let's get mom in too, or dad, let's get them in too. And however we can do that, maybe even some of the preschoolers, let's try to find a way that we can effectively reach everyone. This is something that they're going to spend money on it anyway. Why not spend it at your shop? The market's already there. So when you start doing your social media content development, you sit and you write out what you would like your posts to look like. And whether you do it by pen and paper, because some people still prefer to do that, and I get it. You just start jotting down ideas and then they just start to flow. And sometimes that's easier than either typing it up on your phone or typing it up on a computer. Sometimes it just, you get a better flow. But so as you develop all of that stuff, you start grabbing images. Go through some of the pictures that you've taken within your shop, or maybe some of the photo stock online. Just start grabbing images and then plugging them into different areas for the content that you're developing. And as you're doing that, you're going to then continue to create ideas for your campaign. So now you sat and you wrote up all of your for the most part, you'll have most of your content written up in a very short period of time, probably within an hour or two, you can have all of that done. And then you want to look at scheduling. Okay, so now how am I going to run this this campaign with these different areas? Maybe we do a girls' weekend where all the young girls who come in to get their hair done for school, we throw in a prize drawing for that weekend, or a set of nails at a discount, or something similar, to just try to grab them to bring them in for that weekend. Maybe a makeup session, just something to tie in there. So now you're looking at a calendar. You should have a calendar in front of you at this point, and you're looking at, when am I going to plug in this content and schedule it out to Facebook or Twitter, or et cetera, wherever, that's industry specific, but wherever you're going to be sending out your social media ads, you can sit there and do that on your calendar. So after you get all of that taken care of, again, now we're kind of into the flow now. Now you're into Google Ads. Okay, so now we already have this content and everything developed. Let's go ahead and plug it into Google Ads. Plug in the different stuff that we're doing and get it set for certain days and so on and so forth. Now we have everything scheduled. Some of that stuff you're going to have to jot down on your calendar to go back in maybe at the end of July and say, okay, well, look, the first weekend of the first weekend of August, we're going to have our boys' weekend, and this is what we're going to be doing for the boys who come in and get their hair cut. And then, moving on from there, we're going to move into the additional website editing. So that's just where basically you've taken everything that you put into your content development, your media scheduling, you have your whole plan pretty much in place already. Okay, well, what do we need online to make this work? Well, we should probably have a couple banners on there. We need to set up our bookings for those weekends, put it into our booking calendar so that anyone wanting to schedule during that time frame can go ahead and do that. Especially if you're probably going to have a limited number of spots for your specials weekend, whether it be like the boys or the girls or a family or whatever you decide to hone in on there. Maybe you do a hair color weekend, this is what we're going to do for everybody who comes in and gets their hair colored. you can go ahead and make adjustments on your website so that it reflects your campaign. You want to inform any corresponding chambers or networking groups that you're with. Just shoot them an email. Hey, here's our, here's the information that we're doing, and here's the specials that we have. Just send it, whether you actually have a flyer at that point. We'll talk about creating a flyer later on when we get to print, but you want to make sure that they are informed, even if it's just with a link. Your email campaign. So now again, we've already built all the hard stuff. The hard stuff is done. It took us probably 2 hours to do it, but it's done. So now we can create an email campaign. When do we want these emails going out? We need to have like a schedule, maybe go out the beginning of July, saying what we're going to be doing the whole season, and then some reminders and some booking links and so on and so forth, building all the way up to August 25th, maybe some kind of flash thing right after school starts, like, oh no, it's so crazy you sent your kid to school and we got all the notebooks, pens, and pencils, but we forgot to get a haircut. It's okay, school just started and we got $2 off haircuts, that type of thing. Again, so down to G, just to clarify, this isn't a redundancy. Website development needs to be a separate step that you take. You need to go back into your own website and you need to make sure that everything flows properly. Especially if you don't have an in-house web editor, you need to make sure that you're going back in manually yourself and everything is flowing properly and is easy to use. Okay, so that's our digital right there in a nutshell. And again, when you talk about spending dollars, if you're looking at actual dollars, make sure that you're hitting at least one of them. Google Ads, social media, email, those are the big dollars. Your website, editing it is probably going to cost you some money too, depending on whether you have an in-house editor or not, but make sure that you're hitting those at some capacity I recommend, of course, spreading your budget out as far as possible, even if that means it's a little bit less here and there, but it's going to be based on your industry and where your market is. Okay, so here was a few ideas that I popped in. So like if we do fall specials, low lights are 20% off, boys cuts are this. And then you want to put in some experience-based content, pictures of your previous work, special dates for certain groups, Women's Hair Week, Boys Only Day, etc. And then build that day or week around that group to attract even more attention. And then after you're grabbing these people and they're coming in, maybe even another grab would be, hey, you come in and get a cut now, we're going to give you a coupon to come back in the fall for a 50% off cut, because they're going to get done in August. They're probably going to be they're going to be back again before the holidays. So here's a 50% off. Okay, let me move on. So this was just an example of one of the Facebook pages that we have. So moving on, we wanted to looking at that overall budget. This was something that I had found, and this one is a little bit dated now. I think these stats are from 2016, but I wanted to look at where you should be allocating your funds based on percentages. So of course, if you have $100, 16 is at print, 8 is graphic design, etc. And I actually grabbed this one because I thought it was the most confusing one, and I don't really advocate something that's confusing. So I wanted to take this, show it to you, show you that it's kind of bogus. If you look through some of the items here, and I break everything down into, pretty much the 3 sections. You have your digital, you have traditional, and you have print. And once you hone in all of your marketing into those 3, there's some tiny miscellaneous, but for the most part, everything is going to fall into those 3. But if you look at this, you can see where you have print up here and you have direct mail down here. Well, direct mail really falls into print. You're hitting, for the most part, the same market. Email marketing and online video, web development, social media, like all of that, you're hitting a lot of the same market there. There's going to be a lot of overlap there. So to have them all in separate budgets doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Now, from a marketer's perspective, like me, if I'm sitting down, I might break down some things like this, but for the most part, even I wouldn't, because I want to see, is it flowing through digital? Is it flowing through print? or is it traditional? And we'll get into what I mean, what I'm referring to when I say traditional later on. But I just wanted to show this to you because I feel like oftentimes when it comes to marketing, even webinars like this, I feel like there's so much information that gets thrown out, and it's thrown out like, here, we're going to try to confuse you so that you buy our stuff. I don't really want anybody to do business with me if they feel like they're just doing it because I'm confusing. I want you to fully understand what I'm doing, and I want you to hire me based on my skill sets and my ability to effectively market your company, not because it's confusing. I want you to know what I'm doing. So that's all I'm going to say about this. Okay. So here's some more information on social media. I'm going to breeze through this one for this just because a lot of this information is a little bit dated. We all know that Facebook is king, and we don't really need to address a whole lot else. If you want a copy of this presentation, I can always email one as a PDF. Just email me at soupsmarketing@gmail.com and I can send it to you. One thing that I do like to constantly remind when it comes to your marketing is that you always have to consider your brand. And here's a good spot for me to go ahead and insert my love for Sheetz, because even though I'm sorry, Mr. Sheetz, I cannot stand your food. I think your marketing and your branding is phenomenal. You took everything that people hated about gas stations 30 years ago, and you made them not only love the gas station, but they just come because your brand is amazing. And if you look at like their Sheetz, you know, everything is wrapped around this name, like Sheetz. It's a word that, you know, again, 30 years ago, nobody would have associated with getting a sandwich and getting gas. Like they really branded themselves so well. They have online forums to help make them even more effective with, you know, what consumers are wanting. You know, now they have dining inside and a drive-through, and they really just hit the nail on the head with their whole marketing strategy. It wasn't just their name and logo. It was what they did with their name, logo, and products. And when you're able to do that with your brand, with everything that you have, then that's where you're going to be the most effective. It's not just your cupcake. It's everything you do with it. Okay, so here's where I go ahead and throw in my 2 cents about where your budgeting should be. And I hope my pie looks a little bit more simplistic and easier to read than the previous one. So what we're looking at is, I'm going to start in the top right in the blue there, the print being at 25%, your digital being at 25%, your traditional being at 25%, and then your promotional / price, that should be around 20, and then maybe like a 5% tweak into your miscellaneous. But this is pretty much where your pie should be looking. So your advertising is your print, digital, and traditional. Your promotional and price is when you have the actual sale. So if you're giving $5 off of a haircut, you know, you need to consider that is those are dollars coming out of your pocket, and that would be part of that promotional price piece of the pie there. So we've already gone over the digital. Let's move on to the print and promotional products. So they are, I mean, this is pretty much what it says it is. This is where you're considering your yard signs, your flyers that you're creating, any promotional products that you send out with your trade shows or salespeople, your newspaper ad insert. You want to make sure that, like I said with the digital, you want to make sure you have one item, one of those that you're putting dollars into. And with the digital, oftentimes you can more easily spread your dollars out, where print promotional, you may not be able to do that. Sometimes you just have like this chunk of funds. And if you don't put it all into, you have to pick one. Like you can't effectively spread those dollars out because you end up wasting money. So But if you at least picked one of those, like which one for this do I think is going to be the most effective? A newspaper ad, you know, a flyer that I go drop off different places, or if I take yard signs and throw them all over town. Like, what do I think is going to be the most effective in getting the word out about my back to school special with haircuts? I think for this one, if I had to pick one, I would probably pick yard signs. So here's your traditional. I mean, it does include your TV and radio. This area right here is pretty self-explanatory, but we're going to move on to the next section down here. So here's the rest of the traditional. You have your seminars face-to-face. This to me, for me, is part of my traditional. So I have flyers that I go and distribute often at different meet and greet events. I go to luncheons and things like that, or sometimes I just go into a city and I go from business to business and start talking to people. And I've drummed up a lot of activity and revenue just doing that. Your graphic design is part of your traditional, your press release. So when you have a new cupcake going out, you know, you want to make sure that you get a press release written up and get it sent out. You know, that, hey, we have this cupcake that's made out of pickle juice and organic berries, and it's amazing. Everybody's loving it. Like, and it's great for the environment. You know, like, you want to do that kind of stuff. Let everybody know what you're doing. And that's, you know, it takes time to sit down and write up a press release. But once it hits the papers or it hits online, you end up with a lot of free publicity. And then you have your community resources. Is there a way that you can take your business and market it towards church youth groups, or to a women's church group, or the Rotary, you know, any of these clubs or groups that are already congregating? Like, can you take this and make their lives better with it? And if you can do that, then you need to market it in that angle. Okay, so just kind of a little bit more of a breakdown on the graphic design. You're looking at your in-store packaging, your logos, your internal, external flyers. So a good example of an internal flyer would be, you know, when you look at national franchise, you know, the franchise a lot of times will put out incentives to the different store managers, or even a lot of the direct sales people, their hosts or hostesses. They'll get incentives if they hit a certain sales goal, whether it be a dollar amount or a particular product. So if you sell so many Pampered Chef gloves, or so many, I'm thinking of oven mitts, in case you're wondering where I was going with Pampered Chef gloves. I have one and I love it. That was my Pampered Chef plug. But you know, if you have Tupperware bowls and you have so many of them that you want to sell those or whatever, that would be an internal flyer. And of course your external is pretty self-explanatory. And then your overall branding, like, that all falls into graphic design. So you want to make sure that when it comes to your graphic design, you have that on point. You have a good design company working with you, or a good designer working with you that will really portray your brand onto whatever they're designing for flyers, etc. So just breaking down for a little bit of review, how marketing funds are ultimately allocated is driven by the nature of the business, the competitive marketplace, and how target customers behave through the buying funnel. And this will help give your company a basis to where to start. So if you have any questions, I know I kind of breezed through this, but like I said, it was a re-recording. This was just to help people who weren't able to attend the original live webinar in May. I do know what month it is. We will be looking at scheduling more live seminars and more webinars coming up later in the year. Also, I have the opportunity to speak at the 2019 Laurel Highlands Marketing Summit. So I look forward to anybody attending there. Just please come say hello. Tell me you saw me here, and I would love to talk to you and about your business and maybe how we can work together. So again, my name is Patrina. I'm with Soups Marketing, and my direct line is 412-626-7687. My website is soupsmarketing.com, and my email is soupsmarketing@gmail.com. Thank you very much for your time, and you guys have a great day.